The wind howled across the cracked wooden boards of a dying frontier town. The trading post stood like a broken tooth, weather-beaten and sagging, its windows crusted with dust and regret. Inside, the saloon reeked of spilled whiskey and old sweat. The poker tables were quiet. Only the clink of a bottle being uncorked broke the silence. Jake Colburn slouched against the counter, his hat tipped low, a smirk on his stubbled face. His voice slurred as he slammed a nearly empty bottle down. "One more bottle," he rasped. "Come on, she's worth it." The saloon keeper, a wiry man with gray sideburns and a nervous twitch, eyed the girl sitting quietly in the corner. She looked no older than 14, barefoot, bruised knees, dirt clinging to her cheeks. Her eyes, empty, distant, didn't move, even as the men haggled over her like she was livestock. "She's young, strong enough to scrub floors, cook," Jake said, swaying. "Give me 2 bottles. Just 2. The saloon keeper hesitated, glancing at the girl, at Lena, then back at the bottle. The door creaked. Every head turned. A man stepped into the saloon, and the air shifted. He wasn't from around here. That much was clear. His coat was long and black, tailored. His boots were polished. His eyes, pale gray, scanned the room without expression. He didn't smell of whiskey or dust. He carried no visible gun, but the silence wrapped around him like armor. The stranger's gaze settled on Lena. He walked slowly to the counter, glancing once at Jake, then down at the bottle. "She yours?" he asked, voice low but clear. Jake snorted. "She's nobody's. Found her in the hills. She don't talk much, but she's not dead weight. Worth 2 bottles, easy." The stranger reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something that caught the lantern light. A gold coin. He set it on the bar. "I'll take the girl." A pause thickened the room. Even the piano player in the corner stopped mid-tune. Jake blinked, then laughed, sharp and bitter. "You serious? That coin's worth 10 times what I'm a skin. You some kind of fool." The man's expression didn't change. "She comes with me. Now." Jake narrowed his eyes, but didn't push it. Something in the stranger's stillness made his instincts twitch. He snatched the coin, grumbling, and grabbed his new bottle. "Hell, take her. She's broken anyway." The stranger walked toward Lena. She didn't flinch, didn't move, just stared. He knelt beside her, offered a hand. "My name is Silas Grant," he said softly. "Can you walk?" She nodded, and for the first time in days, she stood. They left the town behind as twilight bled across the sky. Lena rode behind Silas on a sturdy black horse. Her body ached from days without rest, but she kept her arms loose, her eyes on the trail. She didn't ask where they were going. She didn't speak at all. She was used to silence, used to men who took her without words and left her with worse. They stopped at a general store near a creek. Silas dismounted and returned with a pair of small boots, a wool coat, and a satchel of bread, cheese, and apples. He handed the coat to her without a word. She stared at it like it might bite. Still, she took it, pulled it on. Warmth seeped into her bones. They rode again, into the deepening dusk. She kept waiting for him to change, to snarl, to grab her wrist, to call her names. But he didn't. He simply rode in silence, the reins loose, his back straight, as the snowy ridgelines came into view. When they made camp that night, he gave her the better blanket and sat on the opposite side of the fire. He didn't stare, didn't press her. Lena lay down, pretending to sleep, but her eyes stayed open. This man confused her, and fear of the unknown kept her curled tight beneath the stars. The flames crackled in the dark. A coyote howled far off, lonely and thin. Silas poked the fire with a stick, keeping his distance. Lena sat across from him, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes flickering in the glow. She hadn't eaten much, just nibbled the bread and cheese. He watched the sparks rise into the black sky, then said softly, "You're safe now." Lena blinked. The words struck something fragile and buried. She looked at him, her voice brittle. "Why'd you buy me?" He didn't answer right away, just stared into the fire. Then, quietly, "Because no child should be bought." Silence fell between them again. She stared hard at his face, searching for a lie. There was nothing but tired truth. "I don't understand you," she muttered. "That's all right," he said. "You don't have to." He leaned back, pulling his coat around him. Lena's gaze dropped to her hands, small, calloused, scabbed. She wanted to ask more, but her voice shrank again. Questions hurt when you expected the worst. Still, that one sentence echoed in her head long after he fell asleep. No child should be bought. For the first time, she didn't sleep in fear, but confusion, and a tiny flame of hope. 2 days passed. Lena's fear didn't vanish, but it softened. Silas spoke little but rode steady, stopping for rest, buying her better food when they passed another settlement. People nodded at him with respect, not fear. She couldn't figure him out, so when they rounded a bend in the snow-dusted hills and came upon a tall iron gate flanked by stone lions, her breath caught. Beyond the gate, a sprawling mansion of pale stone and redwood beams. Lanterns flickered in the windows. Smoke rose from 4 chimneys. Fences stretched across manicured fields. A barn stood nearby, freshly painted. This yours?" she asked, voice nearly swallowed by wind. Silas looked at her and nodded once. "Used to be." They passed through the gate. A stable hand appeared and took the horses without question. A cook peeked from the side door, smiled gently at Lena. She stepped inside and warmth wrapped around her like a wool blanket. Rugs beneath her bare feet. Chandeliers above. A fireplace roaring in every room. The scent of baked bread and soap. Silas turned to her. "Now it's yours too, if you want it." Lena didn't answer. She didn't have words for the weight in her chest. But her eyes, for the first time, held more than fear. Lena woke to warmth. A feather mattress cradled her, wrapped in thick quilts. Pale morning light spilled through lace curtains. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, until she sat up and the aches in her body reminded her it was all real. The room was too clean, too quiet. There were no rats, no drunken shouting, just the steady ticking of a clock on the wall. She explored slowly, bare feet padding over wooden floors. A wardrobe full of dresses. A desk stacked with sketchbooks and pencils. Bookshelves lined with dusty tomes, some of the pages gold-edged. A window view of snowy pines and open sky. In the yard, a shaggy black dog barked once, then wagged its tail at her. His name was Bear. He became her shadow. At dinner, she devoured roast chicken, potatoes, and cornbread like a wild animal. Silas didn't speak much, just poured her milk and watched her eat, his face unreadable. He didn't ask about her bruises, didn't ask about the men. He only said, "Tomorrow I'll show you the stables. You'll like the horses." She studied him constantly, waiting for his kindness to twist into something cruel. But it didn't. He gave her chores, simple things. Fed Bear, sweep the porch, pick a book, any book, sketch the garden. He'd glance at her work with quiet nods. "You've got steady hands," he said once. It wasn't praise exactly, but it settled something inside her, something that hadn't felt steady in years. It took a week before she spoke, more than a few words at a time. They were walking the fence line, Bear bounding ahead, when she finally said it. "My mama died giving birth to me." Silas looked over, waited. "My pa drank. Real bad. Blamed me. Said I was cursed. Died in the river one winter. I don't think anyone missed him." She didn't cry. Her voice was flat, rehearsed. "They passed me around after that. Families, if you want to call them that. One man made me sleep in the barn. One woman told folks I was slow, so they'd leave me alone. They used me up. Silas didn't interrupt, just kept walking beside her, the crunch of snow the only sound. I ran, found work here and there, until Jake found me. She paused, looked at him sideways. You gonna say sorry now? He shook his head. No, I won't pity you. She blinked. That was new. You survived, he said simply. That matters. They reached a rose bush, brittle in winter, but still beautiful, its thorns rimmed with frost. He crouched beside it. You prune it like this, he said, clipping carefully. Cut where the dead weight is. Helps it grow stronger come spring. He handed her the shears. She hesitated, then took them. That day, she learned to prune roses, and that her story didn't have to end where it began. Lena began to notice the whispers when they went into town. Shopkeepers stood straighter when Silas walked in. A banker offered to shake his hand. A boy gawked at him from the candy store window like he was a ghost. Is that really him? The boy whispered. Lena pretended not to hear. Back at the mansion, she asked old Tom, the housekeeper who fixed the fireplaces and knew how to make cinnamon tea. Who is he? She asked. Tom paused, wiping his hands on a rag. You mean who was he? Lena frowned. Silas Grant built half this town, Tom said. Railroads, mines, real estate, married rich, made richer. They say he once had the governor in his dining room. So, why's he living out here? Tom grew quiet, lost his wife and boy. Fire took the house in Denver. He didn't rebuild, just vanished. Folks figured he went mad or left the country. Lena looked down the hall where Silas sat reading alone by the fire. He's not saving you, girl, Tom added gently. He's saving himself. The words clung to her skin like smoke. Later that night, she stared at the ceiling of her warm room and wondered what a man like that saw when he looked at her, and what pieces of himself he was trying to glue back together. The storm rolled in fast, thunder splitting the mountains, wind shrieking through the trees. Lena was in the parlor, sketching Bear asleep by the hearth, when the lights flickered, then died. The world went black. She froze. For a moment, she wasn't in the mansion anymore. She was back in the barn, huddled behind hay, the sound of boots stomping closer, the smell of sweat and whiskey, the heat of rough hands. She dropped the pencil, scrambled backwards into a corner, arms around her knees. She didn't hear Silas's footsteps, just felt the shift in the room when he appeared. He didn't speak, didn't touch her, just sat a few feet away on the floor. The only light was the glow of coals in the fireplace, fading fast. I remember this storm, he said quietly. She didn't move. It was just like this the night my boy died. He was 12. His name was Eli. The wind screamed outside. Rain pelted the windows. He had your eyes, same way they look at the world, like it's trying to trick you. Lena looked up slowly. He wasn't crying. He wasn't fragile. He was just there. I couldn't save him, he said, eyes on the floor. But I can protect you. She didn't speak, but she shifted just slightly out of the corner. And for the first time, the dark didn't swallow her whole. Spring arrived quietly. Lena sat on the porch steps, sun warming her arms. Bear napped beside her. She was sketching again, a wildflower pushing through snow. Silas came out, leaned against the railing, arms crossed. You draw like you're remembering something, he said. She shrugged. Feels safer on paper. He nodded, then asked, what do you want to become? The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I don't know, she admitted. No one's ever asked me before. Silas smiled faintly. Then let's start with that. He sat beside her, handed her a folded paper. She opened it. Inside, a letter of sponsorship to the school in town, a bookshop voucher, A legal document offering guardianship. Only if she wanted it. I don't want to own you, he said. I want to give you a future. Your name. Your choices. Lena stared at the paper. Her throat thickened. Can I keep my name? She asked softly. Of course. She looked at him. Really looked. For the first time, she didn't see a stranger or a shadow. She saw a man who'd lost everything and still chose to save someone else. A laugh broke out of her. A surprised, shaky sound. She clapped a hand over her mouth. Silas raised a brow. You okay? She nodded, still grinning. I think. I'm gonna be. The air in the valley thickened weeks later. Snow had begun to melt into muddy trails, and the first green buds clawed through thawing soil. Spring was waking, but something darker rode in with it. Jake Colburn. He hadn't died in the wilderness, like many thought. He'd been lying low, healing, drinking, scheming. Now he returned with two men, grimy, scarred, leather-faced. All three rode into the outskirts of town, like shadows, looking for light to swallow. Jake stopped at the saloon where he made the trade. Told me she was broken. He grinned, spitting in the dust. But rumor is, she's living like a princess. With Silas Grant, no less. One outlaw laughed. Rich man got a soft spot. Jake's smile hardened. Rich men always do. Let's see what she's worth now. He wanted the girl back. Not for care, not for regret, but to remind the world who owned what. And he planned to drag her out of that mansion, whether she walked or bled. Lena was in town that day, standing beside Tom outside the general store. She had a new dress, a list of supplies folded in her pocket. Her boots fit right. Bear waited patiently by the post, tail wagging lazily. She was laughing, really laughing, at something Tom said when she saw him. Jake, across the road, his eyes met hers. He froze, smiled, and Lena's blood turned to ice. She couldn't breathe. Tom saw her face change, saw the color drain, the smile vanish. Inside, he whispered. Now. They ducked behind the counter of the store, Tom whispering to the clerk to send a boy riding hard to the estate. Lena's hands shook as she gripped the sack of flour too tightly. He's coming, she said. Tom nodded. Then we'll be ready. By the time they reached the estate, Lena's fear had curdled into something else. Resolve. Silas listened without interrupting. When she finished, he didn't panic. He stood slowly, crossed the room, and opened an old cabinet. Inside, a revolver, oiled, loaded, waiting. He holstered it calmly. No more running, he said. Lena swallowed. What if they won't back down? Silas looked her in the eye. Then neither will we. Dusk turned the sky orange and bruised when Jake and his men rode up the hill toward the estate. They weren't subtle. The horses thundered. Guns glinted at their sides. Lena stood in the upstairs window watching. Her hands clutched the windowsill, but she didn't move. Silas stood by the front gate, coat flapping in the wind, boots firm in the dirt. Jake dismounted, cocky, smiling. Evenin', Silas, he said. Heard you've been babysitting my girl. She's not yours, Silas replied coldly. And you gave her up. For whiskey. Jake laughed, waving at his men. She was mine when it mattered. Now she's yours. You always did have bad taste. Silas didn't blink. You come on my land with guns drawn. You think I'm afraid of you. Jake stepped forward, lowering his voice. She's nothin'. Just a mouth to feed. I'm doing you a favor, talking her back. Silas took one step forward. Calm, powerful. I built the mines you tried to rob. I fund the bank you owe money to. The law rides for me, not you. You traded her for poison, Jake. You don't get second chances. Jake snarled. You rich folk think everything can be bought. I'll take her anyway. He lunged. A gunshot shattered the moment. Jake stumbled. Blood bloomed at his shoulder. Silas turned. Lena stood behind him, small hands wrapped around the revolver, barrel smoking. The other two men backed up, faces pale. Nobody moved, except the dog, who barked once, then went still again. Lena didn't realize she'd pulled the trigger until the sound stopped echoing. Jake dropped to one knee, clutching his shoulder, eyes wide with disbelief. "You little," he growled. Silas stepped forward, gun still drawn. Another move, and I end it here. Jake froze. Lena's hands trembled. The gun felt too big in her grip, but she didn't drop it. Not yet. Silas turned, looked at her, not with anger, but something deeper. "You didn't run," he said quietly. Lena swallowed, her breath shaking. "You taught me how to stand." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Jake fell back, groaning. The spell was broken. Tom appeared from the barn with a shotgun. Bear barked again, a deep protective growl. The other outlaws dropped their weapons. It was over. The sheriff came by nightfall. Jake was bandaged, shackled, and loaded into a wagon. His men didn't argue. The next morning, the townspeople came. Not with torches or judgment, but baskets of bread, tools, letters of respect. They'd heard the story. Some had seen it unfold. A girl once sold for whiskey had stood her ground with a millionaire by her side. Silas received them with quiet nods. Lena stood beside him. She didn't hide behind him anymore. She started school that week. She was nervous at first, but her hands stopped shaking when she opened her new books. She read, wrote, drew wildflowers in the margins of her math notes. Every morning, she fed Bear, pruned the rosebush, walked down the lane to the schoolhouse with her shoulders back, and one day at the town hall, she signed her name in the ledger of new citizens. Lena Grant. The clerk looked up, surprised. "You related to Silas Grant?" She smiled. "Something like that." Silas stood a few feet away, leaning on his cane, watching her with misted eyes. He didn't need to say anything. He didn't need to. Lena runs through the green garden, arms wide, Bear chasing her in circles. The mansion behind her glows in the afternoon sun, its windows open, its halls alive again. In the graveyard on the hill, Silas kneels before two stones, placing lilies on each. One says Eli Grant, the other in Grant. He whispers something only the wind hears. He stands, looks toward the house, toward home. Narration soft, emotional. He bought her for a gold coin, but she gave him something far more valuable. Hope. The screen fades to black.